That's the bar for
lowest then?
bad.
Can we start yet?
She's still looking.
It's been like 5 minutes.
Annabeth! You find it?
Okay, there
Do
we
we
go.
give up?
They're just gonna start.
Maybe next time.
Okay, good effort.
Dang. A for effort, though, for real.
A for Effort is the name of this episode. Welcome to the Effin' Movie Podcast. Price is your host.
I am.
So is Nathan.
He is.
So is Mason.
He is too.
I guess I'm here too.
He is 3.
And, before Price.
Yeah.
1, 2.
I said he is 3. Me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We'll watch it back later. Anyway,
Okay.
First of all, probably see a nice, calming visual. Before we get into our movie, which you could probably already tell by the title of this, video. What's the video game we're playing today?
This is Sparkle Evo 2. Kind of an older game,
Thought it was
but
Sparkle
just
Evo
a
Spring.
very chill.
Is this how
chill game
COVID
that
sprang?
Yeah. Well, one of the achievements for this game was to find malaria.
Oh.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I think there's diseases in this world.
It makes me
I
think
think
of.
we're a virus.
It reminds me of the beginning part of Spore. If you all played
Yeah.
that, where you're just a little amoeba like eating stuff.
No, I don't play COVID Simulator.
All right. By the way, guys, I have something very special for you all today. I brought a special guest with me today.
Donald
Is
Duck.
it Corona?
Nope,
I don't.
it's not.
All good answers.
Check it out. I brought the man himself.
Oh.
Oh. Who could have guessed
Nick
that
Cage
today?
is here.
We are
Oh
going to
my
have
God.
actual Nic Cage. We're going to have to put that featuring Nic Cage.
Hey, Price paid me $5, and I was like, I need the money.
I think
Yeah.
So
that's incredibly believable.
And I'm sure we're going to be able to hear Price very well on the audio. from
Yeah.
this too.
fine. I'm back.
To be fair, I'd be careful with that. Nic Cage seems like the kind of guy who watches every video about him. Shout out to you, Nick. But yeah, in case you didn't know by the title of the video, we're reviewing Adaptation.
Adapt.
You struggled with
I
that.
know,
Not
Adaptation.
Adaptation.
I never remember the name
Adaptation.
of this
I always think about that one syllable there. It
Yeah.
messes me up. That's one of the hard
Well,
ones.
I will say, whenever I was searching for this movie, for whatever reason, I kept typing Adaptation.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
And
I had the same problem.
Like
Like
I was
Adoption?
getting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
was getting
so,
worried.
it's interesting that that's what you were going to, because I feel like this movie has so many layers in its name
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
Because you could say that this movie was about adaptation, because
Yeah.
it's about adapting a book into a film.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
It's about personal growth.
adaptation also, I mean, that's like on the face makes sense.
Mhm.
I don't think
Oh.
adaptation is adaptation a word.
Probably not.
Yeah, like
Adaptation.
adapting something to, like,
Yeah.
adapting a book
Jill.
to film is a thing.
Adaptation is when you adapt a book into a movie or anything else. I
Yeah.
don't know what adaptation is.
I was just gonna say, I didn't think that was a word.
I'm still not sure if it is.
Jill was giving me this look, and I was like, I think she's right.
Right. Hannah gave me the same look whenever I said adaptation, and I'm like, yeah, that's-
Adoption's a word.
I'm like, that's probably wrong. I know I'm missing, but I know I've always missed that syllable, like
Whoa.
adaptation.
Like jewelry.
I'm getting
Some people say
crazy.
You got
jewelry.
a big mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big mouth.
You
Anyway,
got a big mouth.
listen. In 20 words or less, Price, what is the plot of this movie?
Nic Cage is trying to adapt Meryl Streep's book. He meets Meryl Streep.
Hijinks ensue.
Hijinks ensue.
Okay, good, because that is
That's
as
awful.
as brief in summary as we're gonna get with it, because this movie has a lot going on.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like depends on what burst of 30 to 40 minutes of the movie we're talking about. It's a different plot, which let's get into. What did we think on just the overall pacing, storytelling, and like that aspect?
The very beginning of it, I was already confused because it's just Nic Cage rambling stream of consciousness for like 2 minutes straight to a black screen. So I'm like, okay, I know I got the right movie because Nic Cage is voicing this. And then it goes to like this behind the scenes of being John Malkovich, and then I thought like,
Oh, I was so happy to see that.
I was so
That
confused.
What a weird
fast.
shared universe.
I
right?
I know.
I thought I was watching the wrong thing, and then I saw Nic Cage skulking around in the background.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm here. This is where I'm supposed to be.
I would be. I didn't look into this, but I would be interested to know if this actually was filmed during being John Malkovich and they were actually on the set.
That would be
Right.
interesting. It seems like it'd be difficult, like if they were recreating it.
Yeah,
you know?
like it seems like it would have worked out best if they actually were on set.
Mhm.
Like I would assume that's what the situation was.
I mean, I don't know, because it's the same director from both movies, right?
Yeah.
So it would be difficult.
Screenwriter too.
Oh yeah.
Well, Nicolas Cage was
Charlie
supposed
Kaufman.
to be the Charlie Kaufman, so like it was supposed to be the same type scheme.
Yeah.
And everyone was like telling him, "Oh, hey, you're really good with that script. You know, you can do whatever you want." And they were talking about being John Malkovich the whole time.
So
Which everybody loved that movie.
anyway, not talking about Malkovich, but back to
Malkovich.
I
Adapt.
love the choice of scene
Adaptation.
that he was in too.
There we go.
Yeah, whenever he was wearing
Because
the
it was
dress.
the Malkovich
It-
Malkovich.
Yeah, with everybody
With
in the makeup
everybody,
as John
yeah.
Malkovich.
Malkovich was yeah. I'm saying this to everybody. It's in costumes. I'm fine. I'm in a dress or whatever, like he said. But,
Yeah, he's like, we're doing this once, so all these poor people in makeup can go.
They're
300
all
pounds of
literally
plastic.
wearing my face right now.
Yeah. I think he was just more bothered by it. I
Oh
think
yeah. I mean,
when he got
I
there, he
would
was
be.
like, "This is
I
deeply
would be.
disturbing." Yeah.
It's like I get that this has to happen. I signed up for the strangest movie.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're actually talking.
Yeah, we're not talking about that
about.
movie. But
Tangentially, we are, but
yes.
Yeah.
So for like 5 minutes of bump onto that. So then we get into. I mean, I guess Mason, for you, did you feel like you were keeping up with this movie early on?
I was keeping up with it actually pretty well. It did help that it would say 3 years earlier. And
Yeah.
occasionally it would pop up like that. So, and it didn't take any time because it showed Meryl Streep's character in the book whenever he first flipped it open, whenever he was having that first dinner scene.
And her story was in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was writing her story while he was
Right.
trying to screenwrite his.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I didn't have trouble with that, but there's the obsessive and compulsive kind of background
Self-loathing.
he had, yeah.
Yeah.
And I honestly didn't know if his brother was real at first. That's
No,
the part-
I was
Yeah.
left guessing for a while. on
I
that too.
had that same thought as well.
Oh, don't touch those.
I was like, is this a movie about like having that psychological part of it, or is this guy actually here?
Yeah, because like he very much, I can't remember his brother's name. Charlie is the main guy,
Yeah.
I
but
don't remember his
his
name.
brother
I really
is
don't.
very
Just
much.
watched it last night.
Just say the twin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alpha twin.
Alpha
Yeah.
twin.
There's Alpha twin, and then there's Charlie, the soy boy beta cuck twin.
yeah.
Yeah.
He was. I hated him at the very beginning.
I hated him all the way through.
It's weird how his character changed.
It
Like
changed on the
he got
dime.
so much better.
Which one,
as a
Alpha
character.
or Beta?
Alpha?
Okay.
He got
there.
so much better.
Bader.
Bader.
Like he started off just seeming very awkward and just very much wanting the attention of his brother
Right.
at all times for everything. And you're on the side, which I think this is kind of deliberate in the film, that you're on the side of the main character brother in the beginning because you're just like, yeah, his brother's definitely annoying and doesn't understand the art and essence of what it is to be a screenwriter, and that's kind of the shoes you want to be in, is our main character's shoes. And then over time, you definitely turn to where you're more like, okay, the other brother's the better brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in the movie, it kind of visually tells us that by getting him the girl, Maggie Gyllenhaal, and then like just kind of everything is just always working out for him afterwards. And
His screenplay,
like getting
got picked up at his first try.
and he's like, gonna make millions or something off it. Like it's like wow, two brothers, a talented family, right? But
By the ass-eating agent.
yeah, so yeah, that.
There's a lot to chew on in this movie.
that
And that agent had even more to chew on.
You know, here's what I'll say about the storytelling aspect, is that I actually didn't mind that they were constantly filling the gaps. Like, if they were sitting there and they were referencing something, they immediately showed the scene of what
Yep.
they were talking about.
They did.
And I don't dislike that in storytelling, because it felt as though that was like, oh yeah, you know, what happened with your friend Tiff when we finally got there with the French-sounding name character, Lefru, Lestring, I don't know.
I don't know who you're talking about.
He's the flower expert.
Oh, yeah, the
I should
actual
know
like
his
main
name.
character of what the story was supposed
Yeah,
to be.
Yeah.
like, arguably the real main character. But
Call him the Orchid guy, maybe?
sure, I'm just gonna go with the Orchid guy.
I
But
don't know.
so anyway,
He's a famous actor.
Yeah, I forget which actor it is too. But anyway, so the Orchid guy, like whenever he's sitting there and he's telling the story, because you know the Meryl Streep and all the reviewers and writers are all making fun of him for missing front teeth and stuff like that. And it's all like, oh, gaunt and high class, oh, New York high class. and then later, like they're talking about, you know, like why he's actually missing those teeth. And it's like it immediately cuts to like that scene where it's like him and his wife and his mom and his uncle and they get into a car wreck and
That was one of my 2 favorite scenes.
That's what I thought so too.
Yeah.
I like
No,
the
yeah,
car
yeah.
wrecks how they did it because it's not drawn out. Like it's just like the car crash happens, boom, and then like you see the ramifications of it
Right.
immediately, which I really like.
I give a lot of credit to those parts because I think that how they told the story in both a non-linear fashion because it kept going back, but linear in that it never stopped and then said, okay, well let's do the second act and the first part. It didn't Quentin Tarantino linear tell it. It told it in the fact that it was like if you watch it from start to finish, you're gonna get every bit of this story.
Yeah, because Tarantino, it's more like the story
Starts
says
right about here,
and then you go back to
you go
this
forward,
part,
and
then you
back.
go here. But this one is like they're different time
Right.
periods, but like it's still the same path, and then they converge at the end. Which you're right. That's a good way to put it, Dylan.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed that part as far as that goes, and I enjoyed that scene. And I think that he was definitely he was a fun character that at times felt like he was always more interesting and entertaining than he actually was. But I thought that again, that's the direction of what the movie's trying to do. Like it's kind of adding his perspective into it. And he says, "I think I'm probably like the smartest person I know," and it's always like retelling that line. And I thought the movie did a good job of making like what probably is a simple bumpkin dude who's probably a little smarter than they're giving even the movie wants to give credit, but playing him down while still being interesting and being this character who brings it really all together with it.
Well, I think there's the moment that I think is interesting about that character is in the swamp.
Yeah.
Where Meryl Streep seems to have been disenchanted.
Oh,
As
yeah.
he basically
Gets
seems
the-
to reveal himself to just be any other idiot.
Yeah.
He's not this brilliant, like smarter than he appears kind of person at all times.
Mhm.
Like when he's in his fields of expertise, whenever he's talking about what he knows, he seems to know everything.
Mhm.
But the moment that he's out of his element or put off base, like suddenly he's
Very human.
very, very flawed and just trying to do his best to seem like the person that he's wanting to be, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Is the mic on, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
We always ask that question beforehand, so I can see where we
Forgot to
struggle
this
with that.
time. But yeah, that's a good point to mention with him. And I really liked his dynamic with Meryl Streep too. How, well, not so much the dynamic, but the effect that he had on her. Because you saw her over time become, notice her way of life, was very fake.
Jaded from the whole experience.
Yeah, and jaded. And then she's met this guy who, even though he is still kind of odd, he just, he really throws himself in and is passionate about whatever he is. Like, when he was talking about his fish that he had, it was I was really about fish. I love fish. And then one day I was just I don't like fish anymore.
Fuck fish.
I haven't touched the oceans.
Yeah,
and he'll
right.
never touch the ocean. And then he just goes from one thing to the next. And that's what she fell in love with and why she wound up leaving everything to go be with him at one point. Because, and he made really good drugs, apparently.
Yeah.
So, all good reasons
Is
to
that
leave
a
your man.
Poison?
Ooh, I don't know. Yeah, it looks like it cures in you, and you're not looking very friendly right now on there. But so going back to Kaufman and the twins, both Alpha and Beta, specifically Beta, I want to talk about what what I had to think of while watching this movie, and I was thinking of the tone of this film, and how it feels like the tone is so weirdly influenced by Nicolas Cage in this film. So I think that there's if we look at Meryl Streep and the Orchid guy and their whole running arc, this movie takes a very serious level tone with it. But something about Nicolas Cage just being Nicolas Cage feels like it adds this air of campiness that threads itself throughout the whole movie. It's the best way I can describe it, is that whenever he's on there, even though he's being, very serious and he's acting a character who, well, at least the beta one, the main guy, Charlie, is just this self-loathing, fat, terrible, masturbating piece of shit. And I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of loathing and despair to be had there, but it always just felt so, I don't know, disconnected in tone from the other threads of the story. I don't know if anybody else felt that, but I like literally was like, this is the Nicolas Cage effect to me. I'm like,
I don't think that campiness was really there though when this movie was made, because I don't think Nic Cage really had that persona around at that time. I could be wrong.
Well, not like definitely not the persona he has now. I mean, this is 2002, so I mean
I thought he would have been like hot shit at the time.
Yeah, no. I mean, like, this is a little bit off the tail end of his, like, really hot stuff. It's, like, late 90s and close to 2002. So it's, like, a year or two past his prime. So it's not terrible.
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, it's at the same time, like, where it's... Even still, if this is, like, serious work for him after the part, it still feels a little jarring. And maybe that's just the visuals that they put onto him as well. Because he does just, like, he looks like a cave troll.
Yeah, he does.
It's like...
He's a very strange-looking character.
Right, and granted, you know, if they're basing it off a real person or something,
it's weird for him to be balding and curly-headed.
Yeah, like
that's a thing that you don't think about too often.
Yeah,
you don't see very many
bald and curly-headed, and just sweaty and like
so sweaty.
He just I don't know if it was the visual dissociation for me, just seeing him, and it just felt like all the world felt like the world around it. Like Meryl Streep was very straight in her performance, and so was the acting guy or the Orchid guy. And everybody else I thought like played it very straight and by the books. The only ones who like felt corny were Nicolas Cage and anybody interacting with either of his characters. Like Maggie Gyllenhaal as like the person or whatever felt again like it was just like anything that the brother, like the Alpha Chad brother dude said, like just worked, and it was super corny. The line I pointed out before was like he's talking about plowing in her bush or pushing the bush, pushing in the bush, and he's doing like this weird dance, and she's like, oh,
she's just
so
like, oh, you're so silly,
right? And I'm like, no, this is fucking weird. Like, I'm like, they're like, he's a charismatic cave troll, but they both look very like jarring. It feels like the costume person was just like, Nick's here. Wait, our costume person's gone? I don't know. Does the janitor know how to put makeup on? Like,
we'll put something on.
Yeah, and they just slapped him together. And then Nic Cage performed as Nic Cage did. But I don't know if it was the visual or if it was just Nic Cage in general. But it was something that I realized that while watching this, it didn't feel like he matched the tone of the movie. Barring like maybe the last like 20 or 30 minutes, while it's like him and the brother in the swamp and they're going through that whole like exchange, they feel like it's part of the same movie. But everything up until then felt very, very weird for me.
Not my question, but which movie do you think pulled off the brother situation better? This movie, or can anybody guess the other one? Nope.
You say brothers.
Nope. Legend.
Oh, I was actually gonna ask, because there is the Legend by a fucking country mile. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, Legend was later, and they were able to do
they had better
job technologically. Like,
but
Nic Cage.
But they're such different characters.
Interact with himself.
Right.
Yeah, but like Dylan said, like you can barely tell the difference between them. Like if you swap their clothes or something, like you're not really gonna know the difference. Or
no.
But like.
Well, they were meant to be. Well, I mean, I guess the other ones were meant to be twins too.
Right. They're twins, just the same. So.
They felt noticeably different.
Legend, they were super different.
Right. And it's funny though, which I remember thinking, I actually thought something really similar to it. I was just like, I wonder if anyone's going to bring up Legend, because it's one thing to have two Tom Hardys. It's another thing to double Nic Cage in this and see if the movie improves for
Y'all
him.
Been asking for Nic Cage. I gave you double.
That's true.
But speaking of the brothers, I really enjoyed some of the meta commentary that they had in this movie, especially the conversation, the screenwriting thing between Beta Nic Cage and Alpha Nic Cage, where Alpha's like, I want to try screenwriting. I had this idea. What do you think about it? And Beta's like, that's the most contrived idea I've ever heard. Like, I've seen that movie a million times. Don't do that. Yeah, I gave you a stupid idea because I thought you'd take it, but it's really stupid.
Right.
And you're still going to take it. And then Alpha's like, yeah, I got signed for like millions of dollars.
Right. And he's like,
with the terrible script, which I mean says so much about what we're seeing now.
Right. Seeing in Hollywood and the reproduction machine, so how many movies are actually just this one movie reskinned and characterized and stuff like that. Like,
I mean, it's a formula that works.
It is. I mean,
that's kind of the thing.
When it stops making billions, they'll stop doing
it. But if it's successful, it's kind of hard to really just say that shouldn't happen.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what they say. That's Hollywood, baby. But no, I do appreciate the commentary on that, saying that you can see this person who's genuinely trying to create like his masterpiece and do his thing, and he's been doing what his brother has been just spitting out for like a long time. Because I mean, they even said himself like he's like this is the one movie he didn't want to do this with because he's been putting out all these like Hollywood bullshit blockbusters for so long. Like he built a foundation on it, so of course he's going to be the biggest critic for that type of genre. But you know, I also thought that it was interesting in itself that it was just like, yeah, but you're so burnt out and so jaded that everything feels negative unless it's monumentally revolutionary, right?
Yeah.
And you like, I mean, how we like even just reading random movie critic reviews, like you know, those are the critics out there. They're just critics that if this wasn't the next Casablanca, if this wasn't
Like,
the next,
if this
thing-
doesn't revolutionize
Right.
film,
It's
why
trash.
even make it?
Exactly. Like it's the ones who walked away from like Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, and they were
Yeah.
like fucking garbage. Like, you know, it's gonna be those ones, despite the fact that if they just enjoyed the journey, then they'd be better off for it. And that's the argument. It's like, are you gonna enjoy it? Maybe there's a meta argument about the movie in that. And is it like, are you just gonna enjoy this movie for like what it is, or are you gonna get caught up on the like weird hooks like Nicolas Cage ×2 being trolls? And like Meryl Streep doing her stuff, because I thought Meryl Streep was actually really good throughout the whole film.
Yeah.
She was pretty good.
She was
Yeah.
Meryl Streep to me.
Man,
Yeah.
the-
Not like top tier, like Oscar Meryl Streep, but pretty good.
Back into the story, did any of y'all expect her to just be like, we've got to kill him?
By that point, yes, because
Yeah.
whenever she got high and you
Yeah.
could tell that she was that desperate. The movie did a good job of breaking her down a little bit from like her high class thing to make you see that kind of in the same way the Orchid Hunter isn't the character he presents him to be. Meryl Streep isn't the character. I mean, they subtly hint that she's just miserable with her life, her marriage, her job.
Yeah.
And that, you know, once they got her doing the flower drug and doing like the tone talk and stuff like that, and they start meeting up, I'm like, no, this is like her understanding who she is now. And so like whenever she was like, we gotta kill him, and I was just like, yes you do, Meryl. Because at this point I'm sick of Nick. Like,
Yeah.
oh man.
He needs to go.
Yeah.
You were sick of him?
Beta? Yeah, Beta could have gone through the front windshield. I'd have been fine with it.
Yeah, like, you definitely get the feeling of like, oh, the better brother just died.
Yeah, like, man, I hope this movie doesn't go on much longer. But, I mean, I definitely felt that I had that feeling in the first hour of the film. By the time the first hour is done and it feels like it's starting to do stuff, I was like, holy shit, there's another hour? I'm only at the halfway point?
It was long.
Yeah,
It was fat.
That's something we've not dipped into yet, but
Yeah.
this is a long movie.
This is
It is long.
bothersomely long. Like, I think you could have... Because, again, the first is so heavily focused on the twins that it's like, you could have made this much shorter. Like, we were only teasing Meryl Streep and the Orchid Hunter stuff for a little bit, and some of those were even just replay clips. I mean, I remember hearing him say, I'm probably the smartest person I know, like 5 times in that film.
Yeah.
Like you could have cut 2 or 3 of those, cut down a lot of their time in the beginning, and sat there and still probably got away with doing it. Like, this movie's just fat. Like,
Oh, yeah. Couldn't
Ugh.
agree more.
God, the first hour, I just remember, like, this is going to be a while.
Mason, do you agree?
Yes.
Thank you, Mason. Mason, any thoughts, other critiques, scores, or otherwise you're leading the question, dude?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, you know, the parts where like the car crashes
Car-
happen.
There's 2.
Car
Yeah.
cry.
Car cry.
Yeah.
Car Cry 2.
Yeah.
Whenever those happened, that was the only thing that kind of kept reeling me back in because, like I said earlier, the normal Nic Cage, the regular one, the main one, he was
Beta.
getting on my absolute nerves the entire time, and it made me think that it was just an excuse to make someone like that monk guy. That from that show, which also you mentioned the
yeah.
curly-haired, balding guy. That's another guy that's basically the same way.
Who?
From the
Monk.
character mode.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I know who Monk is.
Basically, they're like the same character, and I'm not a big fan of that, especially if you're gonna make an entire movie about someone like that who's got this inner narration going on the
Yeah.
entire time. It was just the most irritating thing.
For me, I was fine with it. I thought that's what they were going for.
That's definitely what they were going
And
for. It's just not.
And an anti-hero, I'm always okay with, and he definitely was. You were not supposed to sympathize with him.
They do enough tongue-in-cheek stuff with it too to know that it's like almost kind of tropey and stuff. I mean, that's why Bryant, like the movie is both kind of like, I mean, it's bad in its places, but it's also like by design because
Yeah.
there's enough times where it points it out. I mean, Brian Cox, whenever they bring in his character, who I really enjoyed,
Who?
the writer or the editor guy who did the presentation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the screen. The
When he
screen
started
representative.
yelling at Nick Cage,
Yeah.
that was my personal.
Yeah, I was
favorite
just
scene.
like, oh my god, thank God Brian Cox did it, because I can't. Like, I literally can't. I'm not there in person. But, yeah, Brian Cox's whole little scenes, and even them just talking with him after the fact, I was just like, okay, this is the first time I've relatively even liked Beta throughout this whole part of the film, and it's just because he plays really well off of him, of somebody who's just desperate. And desperate enough to even go to this guy's screenwriter, but he does know what he's talking about, and to Brian Cox's credit, like, he's sitting there and saying, like, oh, yeah, and then even gets to the Brothers part, and he's like, yeah, Casablanca, wrote by Brothers. Best screenplay ever written.
I liked how after he yelled at him about what was it, voiceovers being lazy.
Yeah.
There were no voiceovers for
Right.
the longest time. And then when
Until, like, the
finally did
very
come
end,
back,
he's like, wait, this is lazy, this is bad, you're right.
And he said something like, "Oh yeah, this guy would not approve of that." He was like, "Fuck it, this is not right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this."
Exactly.
Well, actually, that was my favorite part, but the most like relatable part that I really liked was when Nick Cage was on that makeshift date with his friend. The first time, and she's looking at him like she wants him to kiss her or whatever, and then she goes inside, and he has that inner monologue of, you should have kissed her, like you could knock on the door or do something romantic, and he's
I'm
sitting
gonna do
there.
that
Like,
right
you'd be
now.
talking to your, like, you'd be telling your kids about how,
Yeah.
like, this was the
And then the
moment.
car just moves.
Yeah, he said,
Yeah.
I'm going to do that right now.
That's a-
He steps on the gas. I was like, that is entirely relatable.
That's
Oh,
about
yeah,
the
like
only
that-
relatable part of the whole
so
movie.
much of the beginning
Yeah.
of this movie, I was like, I get this. Like,
Yeah.
this is a very real character, and I like that. Because that whole inner monologue at the beginning, too, like, I think that was a very real thing as well. Just all that, like, that moment of weakness sort of stuff where you're just like, man, I've got to change myself. Maybe I should go rock climbing. Maybe I should do this, you know.
I'm a piece of shit. Everyone's so stupid, sweating, but anyway.
I think you were stuck on one of those little spiky things.
Yeah. All self-loathing and weird COVID being stuck aside. The question. What is the question? Price?
I have to come up with it.
I mean, yeah, you had to pick the movie. So.
All right, fine by me. I don't really have like a more focused question for this movie. I just thought we needed to talk about it at some point. Okay, we're still good.
Yeah.
Out of all the movies, since we haven't done, I don't think, did I ask this last time? I don't think I did. I just want to ask, like, what has been your favorite movie that we've watched so far? Because we used to do the 4 rotations. We pick our favorite that we've seen
Oh,
so
so
far.
from like this season.
Oh.
Jojo
Well, we
Rabbit.
haven't
Well-
done that. I know.
Well,
That's what I
sorry,
thought.
not this season,
Yeah.
but the last handful.
When I thought of this question, I was like, is there a reason to do this? Nobody's picking Clock Stoppers.
No, you're damn
I actually
right
thought
that.
about Clock Stoppers today, though. I won't lie to you. I did. Like,
Because of
Think
this
about
movie.
Blink
no,
182.
I was walking to my mailbox and I was wearing my watch and I was waiting for cars to go by.
And you're like,
And
Yeah, like mentally, I'm like, if I
Pause
could
on
just,
this.
because I got to go across 2 lanes of traffic on a very busy road to
Yeah,
get to my
that's
mailbox.
true.
So I'm like, fuck it. And I was
This
like,
would be the treat.
and I remember thinking, Mason, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
I had to watch Clock Stoppers. So that was literally my thought on it. But in recent rotation, I mean, I want to look at the wheel, but
I know,
also
but it's
that
not gonna help.
all of them exited out since then.
Yeah.
I actually
know
can't
what
think
it
of
is.
it. Like,
you know what the answer is.
Jojo Rabbit.
oh, I did have
Yeah.
Jojo
Yeah.
Rabbit. So I'm like, no, yeah, it's Jojo Rabbit. Yeah,
Like, we
Unequivocally.
can't lie. It's got to be.
it's 100% Jojo.
Is that
Rabbit.
it for you three? It's
Yeah.
mine's still Hateful Eight. Even though my score did go down,
Uh-huh.
it's still Hateful Eight for me.
Yeah.
We haven't picked so far for me. Like those two have been by far the standouts, and everything else has been like lower.
Oh no, is this the bad season? Is this the season 2 all over
no, I just
again?
said for me personally.
Right,
like,
right.
like nothing.
No, we know. We've seen your
so
scores.
far.
yeah,
I mean, do y'all not agree though? I mean, like,
Nah. I mean, my problem is if it's not that it's been. My argument is it's not necessarily bad, but if you're asking me for standouts, I'm like, But then once you start listing all the movies, I'm like, no, that one was good. That one was good. And I blame that more on wheel memory, because the problem with the wheel is that it's trained us to look forward, not backwards.
here you go: Hateful Eight, Jojo Rabbit, Clock Stoppers, Punisher, Penguin Highway, Sucker Punch, Quiet Place, Constantine, and Your Name.
I've been putting nothing but
Quiet-
bangers into that
Quiet
thing,
Place
if I'm
was
being
good,
honest.
too.
Yeah.
Quiet Place, JoJo, and
I don't know.
I
I don't,
forgot
I
about
don't feel
Quiet
like this
Place.
has really been very out of character
yeah.
so far.
I mean, the most out of character thing has been Clock Stoppers for me. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, now that was a weird one.
Yeah, that was a-
that's a little different.
Yeah, so overall, I mean, I guess we just haven't done enough for it to make sense, because I don't know, I felt like it would have been more than just, like, what, 6 or 7 up until this point?
Mhm.
Yeah.
We're still fairly early on.
I know, it feels wild.
Yes,
It
we
feels
are.
like we've been doing this for, like, months and months now, more than just
Watching
two.
Nathan play all these games.
I know,
Uh-huh.
oh gosh, all the games. But, without further ado, anybody else got any things before we transition into scores?
No, I mean there's so much meat to this story,
Mm-hmm.
but because of that, I think this thing would take multiple watches to really try and analyze.
Are you gonna give it those watches?
Nathan might.
You know, like honestly, like if you had asked me halfway through this movie, am I going to think that this is a great movie? Yes. Like I was thinking like 8 territory,
Oh, wow.
like 8
Wow.
towards 9
Uh-huh.
in the beginning, but it just kept.
It has a
going.
lot. It has a lot to.
Absolutely.
It has a
Yeah.
lot to say.
It has a lot. Credit where credit's due. This is definitely not a simple movie,
No,
and
not at all.
I do respect that for it. But you're already into your score thesis, so I say you just keep on going with it.
Stay with that
Sure.
9.
Yeah.
Go to a 10 so we can
Yeah,
use the button.
so this movie.
I was like, there's no way he's gonna hit it. Oh no.
Just because you
He
didn't believe.
did.
Yeah.
Well,
Peter
he's-
Pan taught me to always believe.
He's-
I don't believe that in the Polar Express.
He's taking
Yeah.
you out tomorrow in TI now.
Yeah.
It is.
I
Yeah,
don't
there you
blame
go.
him.
You're in
After
trouble
Ethan.
now.
No, we'll still take out Ethan. We're coming for you, boy.
Ethan, we're getting you.
We're gonna link him this video months later.
Yeah.
Say we called it.
Like just this timestamp.
Mhm.
He's gonna go for the middle. We saw.
I'm gonna tell Ethan to go for the middle too.
Yeah.
Yep. It's...
Hey, you know sometimes it works
Hey,
out.
fortune favors some of the bold.
Yeah. Yeah, so this movie begins really strong and, has, for good reason, it has a lot of similarities to Being John Malkovich, which is a movie that will surprise you in how good it actually is,
Agreed.
while also being one of the weirdest things you'll ever watch. This has a lot of those same kind of vibes. Now, I don't recall feeling like Being John Malkovich was overly long. This movie, however, does go on for far too long. It's trying to tell 3 different stories. Like, it's a very layered thing. You've got the layer of what's supposed to be happening, which is the story of a book being... Well, it's not even... Like, this movie was supposed to be the adaptation of this book called The Orchid Thief, is what it was supposed to be. Because instead, what it ends up becoming is the writer writing himself into the story while also writing the writer of the book into the story as well. So this was, like, in the world of this movie, it wasn't supposed to be at all what this movie is. So it's doing so much, and it's such an interesting approach to a film. Which, same thing with Being John Malkovich, like, such crazy storytelling. But I feel like they could have done it much sooner than what they did. And it did lose me eventually. Like, I kind of wanted to like our main character more, but again, as he says multiple times, he doesn't want his characters to develop. Because he doesn't want to develop, I guess. And he doesn't. And that's just a lesson right there, and your characters, they should probably develop. Like, it's probably a good thing that they do that in a story, because I think this movie is worse for the fact that you're dealing with this guy that's just such a problem and never tries to fix himself. So I guess ultimately I'm gonna land at a 7 for this film. I do think it's good. I could definitely see myself watching it again. Not anytime soon. And I might even fast forward through some of it, honestly, because it really, I mean, it's like 2 hours and 30 minutes pretty much.
Yeah.
It's quite the film.
Mine was only an hour 54.
Did I watch an extended cut?
Did you watch an extended cut too? Because mine
Yeah,
was
mine-
I did like 2 hours.
Mine was an hour 54.
Mine was 2 hours and I want to say it's like 2 hours 23 minutes.
You guys are
Wow.
fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah,
that was the same
like there's
runtime.
a reason I'm saying this is a long film, I
Right.
guess. It's because I must have watched the extended cut.
Oh God. How
That's
do I?
so long.
How do I? It never says in the title when I find it that it's the
Yeah.
extended cut, but that's exactly how long mine was. It was. I know it was at least like 2.5.
Well, I'm
I
glad
want to
I'm
start
not the
checking to
only
make
one.
sure I'm not watching the extended edition.
I'm just gonna start
now.
googling. Does this movie have an extended cut?
Yeah.
And fucking stop. Like.
Hey, I'm in for every extended cut. Give it to me.
like
Like, I might complain about it a little bit, but
if it's
ultimately, it's what I want. I
But-
want to see more of your movie.
but if it's good, I mean,
yeah,
it's more.
I mean, if it's good, then it's more of the meal that I came for. So
Yeah.
great.
It's true.
I wonder what my brain would think of this movie 20 minutes less. But we'll get there.
Yeah,
Mason.
yeah, because I mean, I'm calling this a fat movie. It's
I would still
probably
call it fat
fatter.
with-
like
yeah.
it would probably still be fat, but
Yeah.
I would probably feel much better about it overall if I hadn't have watched The Extra.
Now it makes me curious what it is.
Take it away, Mason.
So every so often, whenever we pick movies that I've never heard of or never got any traction, I will definitely check the IMDb page just to see like the cast, just to see what the poster looks like, just to see the year mainly. And this was one of those that whenever Price picked it, I looked.
Blind pick, by the way.
Blind pick. It was from 2002. It was 2 hours long. And what I could gather, it
A
had
lot of knocks for Mason already.
Yeah, well, no, I mean 2 hours is whatever, but like mainly the thing that I saw was the critics. The reviews were pretty positive. So
This seems like a movie critics would like.
yeah, no, I mean they were like the
I mean, this
Metacritic
is a
was
very
up in the
meta.
80s.
Right.
This is a very meta film.
Right.
For sure.
This is a critic for critics by critics.
Like it wouldn't surprise me if Being John Malkovich wasn't in the exact same caliber as far as the critic reviews, because it was just so similar. But with that being said, whenever you see all that, then you go into it and it's nothing like what you like to watch. Then you have to sit there and disagree with just about every single thing that you've just seen on the webpage. So that was what I was encountering. I didn't like. That thing is huge.
It's gonna get you, boy.
It just,
I'm gonna eat
it's
it.
like the
Yeah.
Caterpillar from the Avengers.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, so with this, it's just I couldn't relate to like the main character at all. He was all of the narrations, like I said earlier. I'll agree with Bryce where like the brotherly sort of bond that they had together. Every single time he got home from work, they would just basically bicker a little bit. It was more so the main guy bickering with his twin,
Yeah.
and the twin just taking it. You know, he was like, "Oh, sorry."
Laying on the floor eating a sandwich.
Basically,
taking it.
Yeah.
Like literally comes to his room on the floor.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
like drags
Crawling.
himself
Yeah.
into view of his brother.
Oh, sorry. Just.
And being very like negative about every single idea. Like the entire time, the main character would be like, "Oh, so you're still writing that story that doesn't have any characters in it, right? You know, or whatever." But no, this movie was just not my thing at all. Didn't like Being John Malkovich either. I'm gonna give it a 5. I don't think that it's a movie that I'll.
That's low for Mason.
I'm surprised that I've never heard of something like this with how many people. Maggie Gyllenhaal, Meryl Streep, obviously.
Tilda Swinton.
Tilda Swinton was in there at the beginning.
We're
Pretty
doing
good.
Tilda month so far.
I know.
Yeah.
2 for 2 for Tildas.
Who was that narration guy you guys said? Brian Cox?
Brian Cox, yeah.
He looked familiar, I just didn't know who it
He's in
was.
Super Troopers. He's the.
Oh, he's the
chief.
sergeant, yeah.
Oh,
The captain
yeah.
guy.
He's in the ringer too.
I can't wait to put Super Troopers on this wheel
Do it.
one day. It's coming.
Yeah, I'd be about that.
Shenanigans!
Oh, we'll get there.
Never seen it.
So, oh, you will.
I'm gonna tear it down.
I know you
Oh,
won't. It's a
you'll-
comedy.
You'll probably enjoy
you'll
it.
You'll love it, but hate it at the same time somehow because it's you. Anyway, man, 5 is harsh, dude. I'm gonna give this a 4.5.
Wow.
I thought about actually almost like okay, this movie's rough.
Talk through it, Dylan. Talk through it.
No, it's just a stabbing pain in my brain. The first hour,
We're doing well.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
the first hour was just so fucking unbearable that I remember thinking like.
Really? Because that's the part
I
I
hated
like.
it.
I
I
had the
hated it.
hardest time with the first hour. The second hour is whenever it starts stitching things together, and I feel like there's a better through line. But the first hour leans so much on Nicolas Cage and his brother, Nicolas Cage, and
I know they're brothers.
oh man, so I just found it.
Brothers.
I had such a hard time just getting through that first hour and to serve the purpose of it. And I get it, like they are the wrecking ball we follow. They create the path for which the movie goes, but. I was literally sitting here I remember thinking again, like I said it in the earlier part of this review, that tonally Nick just does not feel
Nick and himself.
right. Nick and also Nick just do not feel like they're in the same tone of this movie, and it just stayed jarring through most of the time. Like the way they looked, the way they act, everything about it just felt very disconnected. And later in the second half, it kind of gets better. Like you start to see. I don't even want to say like synergy between Nick and Nick, but like kinda. That's a weird concept. I get it, but you start to see a little bit of things click with him, and a little bit of humility, and a little bit of possible character change and stuff like that. And that was good, but even still then, I just remember thinking, looking at him doing things, I was just like, I don't know. So much of this movie shines on any other part that's not Nicolas Cage, which is a drawback for me because we go into a Nick Cage movie category, and I'm ready to see all Nicolas Cage being
literally
ridiculous.
Anything. Like,
Right.
Like, that was another thing, too. It's just...
This definitely was a different Nick Cage.
Right.
Like, very different from most anything
You're welcome,
we've seen.
boys.
And in his heyday runs, and with all these other movies, like, it's funny, like, the movies that Nicolas Cage is known for, it feels like they're built around him to an extent, right? Like, it feels like they planted Nick Cage and they said, start building from there. And everything matches the tone with that. And I think of movies like Face Off, Con Air, you think of all these other ones that are kind of like his chess piece ones on that one. And, like, they feel like they're all built around. This movie felt like it somehow added him in, and he didn't gel well. And the only reason I'm extra harsh on it this movie is because I've seen movies where he's done better with that. Because I've seen Kick-Ass, and Nick Cage is in that. And Nick Cage does a great job of blending in with the tone of the movie in comparison to this. So it was a hard hour. And then other times I was just so annoyed and frustrated with the character. Maybe a little bit, like, the stuff that I finally did relate with him was, like, cringe stuff I didn't want to relate with him over because I was like, I don't want to think about the times where I could relate with this character. So it just brought me to worse
You
days.
don't want to relate with him, but there are a lot of ways in which he is playing a relatable character.
Right, like, I just didn't want to, though. I just didn't want to. So it's a 4.5. I had an unpleasant experience with it. That being said, the second half, there's definitely a lot of deep, interesting concepts and things being played. It knows, a lot of, to the credit to this film, a lot of it is intentional. And I always give credit to that whenever it's like, it's one thing to be doing it and not realize that you're a bad movie. It's another thing to kind of create parts of a bad movie into it because it's in design. Like, it's going for that. And it knows that it's tongue-in-cheek about it, the whole parts of the movie. Anyway, 4.5. That's just my feeling on the film, though. Boosh.
Well,
Alright.
I'm agreeing with one person's score on this podcast.
The 5.
Anybody guess who it is?
The fact that you would give this movie over an average score in your book blows my mind.
You think it's going to be Nathan?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you are wrong, Dylan, because I'm agreeing with you.
Huh.
Going with the 4.5.
Can I change my score?
My
Take it down to
4.5 isn't as harsh as Dylan's.
It's
Um,
true. My 4.5.
Mine's just like, it's just barely below average for me because it's such a fat movie. I do disagree with these two. I think the first half of the movie is by far when the movie is doing something
Kill me.
the most. It's doing something the most interesting, which I think it has more to say at the beginning half. The second half feels like a very much more traditional kind of movie, with everything coming to a head, doing that kind of stuff. I liked when it was more delving into these deep topics and talking about that rather than that kind of traditional kind of movie structure you're used to seeing. But I can't give it a high score because it's so fat. I don't have any interest to rewatch this movie. The production value on this seems really low besides the cast being highly billed.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's no score to remember it by. There's no soundtrack. There's no interesting cinematography that I remember. There's really no reason to watch this again, in my opinion. If there's anything I'm going to watch again, I'm not even going to do what Nathan does and, like, fast forward. I would skip entire scenes just to the ones I want to watch because there's so much this movie that feels like chaff to me that it doesn't need to be there. So 4.5, it's just below average. Kind of regret my time with it, but not too much.
Can we put a hashtag should have picked Face Off?
Can we put
Yeah.
hashtag should have been Con
I do
Air,
wanna-
National Treasure?
I do want to say the reason that I picked this movie, I
National
just
Treasure's a little too good.
I went through a list of best Nicolas Cage movies, and this was like top of the list. It was like Raising Arizona, which you all said you've seen and don't want to see that.
I mean, that would have been fine.
Face Off was there too, which I was really leaning towards that one because it seemed really interesting. But they have all seen that one already, and I want to pick something that like not everyone has seen, and it was highly reviewed. So, but it kind of shot me in the foot because sometimes the critics can be very, very wrong, and they were pretty wrong on this movie. In our opinion, it was not a 90%.
This is a movie for critics, not a movie for the general ongoing public. Even if we
I agree with you so much.
I guess arguably just critics, but critics wouldn't call us critics anyway. But let's go ahead and spin that wheel because that battery is running dry, boys. All right.
Well, we got. I want to spin. I haven't done it in a while.
We got to spin from over there.
Oh, it has to be for Nathan?
Nathan? The nuts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Take it away, Nathan.
Plus, Nathan spins better.
I'm taking Dead Snow for sure.
I hope it's Dead Snow.
Yes!
A pirate movie!
Ah, let's get a swashbuckler on here. We're
Wait,
getting
who's picking it?
Not
Is
just
it me
a
again?
pirate movie. It's a pirates movie. So
Pirates.
Pirates of the Caribbean specifically.
Is it me again? Because I can already tell you what it is.
I will
Actually, do
know
gladly
this.
skip it over to Price. I don't care.
I know which one I'm picking,
Yeah,
but-
I guess it's either Mason or Price. I'm not sure. Nate?
You go ahead. I'll take the
I
next.
don't know.
All right. I am going with Pirates of the Caribbean 2. Dead Man's Chest.
Yeah, that's fine. That's a good movie.
That's the one that brings Davy Jones in, and that one I remember being one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Of the first three.
Cool.
So,
Anyway.
Dead Man's Chest.
Cool. Pirates 2. Tune in next week. Our battery's running low. Subscribe. Bell. Ding. Thumbs up. Not in that order. Thumbs up goes first, and then it's technically the bell if we're getting
I don't
specific.
know why you think the battery's.
It looks like
going
it's red on there, right?
That's the record.
That's the light.
icon.
No, but there's
It's
the record
plugged-
light,
it's
and then it looks like
plugged
there's
into
the...
It's plugged into the wall.
You're right. I'm already going hot so fast. Make sure to comment below. Make sure to comment below. Annabeth, we're doing Pirates!
She didn't hear you.
Yeah, I don't think she's here.
That's our show.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.